G'day guys, how's it going? I'm back with Frank, he's here, and we're going to get going on the rest of the build here. It's so super hot here, I'm just sweating, humidity's crazy, it's I don't know, it must be over 25 degrees Celsius here today, plus the humidity feels like about 30 degrees, so it's hot, it's really hot, but this is where I want to be. I want to be in a hot garage building saws because I love it. So let's get going. What I wanted to do today is a flywheel, magneto, the wires that run from that, which is the earth and the neutral wire, and then we have the air intake boots, air fuel intake boots, impulse line. I'm gonna get into the AV mounts. And put the fuel tank on, and then we'll probably stop it there because we're going to run out of time, I think, for what I want to do today. And then next time we'll get onto the carb, muffler and clutch and everything like that, and build it right up. And so it's not going to be long, and Frank's going to be up and running, and you can see how to build yourself a 4.6 from woe to go. It's really easy, it doesn't take too many tools, and you can do this yourself and have a lot of fun. These saws are like big jigsaw puzzles, and all it takes is just a little bit of direction and a little bit of knowing what to do in order to be able to build one of these and have a bucket load of fun. And that's what this channel's about. So if you're a jigsaw enthusiast, then you'll probably like this. Well, not like nanas, not like nanas that sit down and do jigsaws. Not that only nanas do jigsaws, but you know what I mean? Like these are like man jigsaws. Man jigsaws. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You may have noticed my new shirt. Matches the hat. I actually got this off my father, this shirt. He gave it to me, which is really cool. Love getting things from my dad because he always gives me cool stuff. So shout out to Dad for this, it's really cool. I actually got this quite some time ago, but I've only just, in the last two videos, this one and the previous one on the chainsaw vice, started wearing it because I figured actually I wouldn't normally wear this shirt, and it kind of fits with what I'm doing here, being a Stihl nut, and I don't really care if it gets a bit dirty, and yeah, it's cool, it's black anyway, so yeah. But also, if you haven't seen the last video, it's all about this, which is what Frank's on, the chainsaw vice there. It's all about this. So if you wanna check out how I got this, the story behind it, what it does, how much I love it, then go check out the previous video. And also I put a link in the description on the last video, on the chainsaw vice video, for where I got this idea from, okay, which is Red Bull 661's channel. That's where I got the idea from it, and then how to make it. So you can go and see the full story there. Without further ado, we'll get into building the saw because that's what we're here for. So here we go. So we've got Frank here, he's lying on his side, he needs his flywheel on. And if you don't know why I'm calling him Frank, you can go back and watch the rest of the videos. But basically, it's because I feel like he's a bit of a Frankenstein saw, like he's made of bits and pieces, bit of Hutzel, lots of Stihl actually, lots of Stihl. To my shame, a bit of Husky up here with the decomp, because this is the only working decomp I have available to me. That's and the Husky ones are actually supposed to be better than the Stihl ones. You might have heard that in the last video. Sorry, swearing there a lot, but yeah, sometimes you just have to cop that. But the reason for that Husky decomp is because I had the Hutzel one in there, which came with a cylinder, and it doesn't seal off when it's when it pops out. So that's basically going to run your saw with an air leak. I'm not comfortable with that. I don't want Frank to have an air leak. I want his big bore, this is the big bore cylinder too, I want his big bore to run sweet and mint, and hopefully it does. So flywheel goes on, I've already got the key in there. See if I can just turn that around. Now, just put that in there. There we go. So the key actually sits in here. It's already on there because I've been using the flywheel to move the cylinder up and down. That is a separate item, so you have to place that in there before you put the flywheel on. The flywheel has a keyway, which you can see in there. So you just line that up with that. Alright, to get it seated down. And that clumps down like that. But then you want to, I'm just going to lock that off. And you want to get a impact socket. My boy's running past, doing something. So an impact socket, this one I'm using a 90mm impact socket, alright. And hammer. And you want to drive that on. Now, that just sort of puts it in place, alright. Couple of drives, couple of good ones, not going to hurt anything. The screw here, I mean the nut, it's got a 13mm nut on it. So, I want a 13mm socket for that. Alright, I want a 13mm socket for that. Which is cool, that nut can go on. Goes down in there. And then you want a bit of rope. So I always use some bit of old pull cord for this. And you just put down cylinder, pinch it up like that, double it up, pinch it up. Alright. And then stuff it down the hole, and this is going to act as a stop. And this is a really good stop because with rope you're not going to damage anything, okay? Actually, I'm going to be turning that this way, so turn it clockwise to jam it. And then once you've done that, we can get into cranking it down. Now as I crank it down, I always pull it anti-clockwise, pull it this way, so if there's any movement in that flywheel keyhole, you're going to end up advancing the timing slightly, which is not a bad thing. You can actually do that more by taking about 0.5 of a mil out of the right hand side of the flywheel. I'm not going to do that in Frank, I might do it later, I might do some kind of adjustment like that, but for this build I just want to see how it runs and just build a pure saw and not muck around with it really. And then you want to really haul on that. To lock that down nice and solid. Like. Okay, once it's done, you advance the flywheel anti-clockwise and you pull your stop out. You can put that away. You don't need that again. From here we can, what we'll do is we put in these wires. Alright, so the earth and neutral. This is the end with the round earth that you want going to the ignition module. So poke that through there, but it also has a grommet that fits in there as well. So there's a I don't know how well you're going to actually be able to see that on here. Basically take you off So down in there, there's a small hole, and this grommet goes in there. Okay, so once that grommet's pushed in there, you can thread those wires through. So that's basically that for that. So I'll just put that grommet in, squeeze it around with a couple of fingers, get that sitting in there nice. Just stops those wires vibrating and rubbing on the inside there. So yeah, these feed through. Put your earth wire through first, I think, because that needs the most room. And then you can follow the neutral. I think it's called neutral. You can pull those through. Right, so you've got that threaded now. Alright, those are going to hang out the back, and those feed into the fuel tank when we put that on. Okay, because that ends up going to your lever which controls your choke and your start. So from here we need the magneto to go in. Right, so that sits down there like that basically. And that, your spark plug will run there, up to there to your spark plug. Alright, so that sits in there. It's got a little sort of a groove in here where you can actually run things, run these. And I'm going to put the wires behind there, so they're out the back of this. They sit behind it, leaving us still plenty of room to adjust things here. Alright, next you want these two T27 Torques, and they each come with a washer on them. You would have seen this if you're tearing down a saw to do a rebuild. You would have seen that these come with a washer on them. So if you don't have a memory that sorry, I'm just grabbing my Torx driver. If you don't have a memory that knows which screws go where, then you might want to write it down or separate them somehow or label them. I don't know how you do that. I just remember that's what I do, or puzzle my way through it. I usually get through it. I've done quite a few saws now, so I just sort of remember pretty much. Now, if you'd seen my chainsaw vice video, the last one, you will notice that I give reference to business cards. All right, in my toolbox that I was showing, my new toolbox, I put a business card in, and that's your spacer from your flywheel and your ignition module, and that gives you your right right spacing. That is very important. Your saw will not run properly if you do not do this. Very, very important. So then you push in. All right, it's got, spin this flywheel around till the magnet actually pulls the ignition module onto that business card and squishes it in there. Okay, you don't want to try and do this where the magnet is not, because that'll give you an incorrect depth. So always do this on the magnet. Okay, so now I pull it on to there again as hard as I can. Really squish that business card in there on that one, and then boys are fighting. Right. This wire then goes on. There's a little. I'll take it out again and show you. So basically, you can see the business card in there. This wire goes onto here. So you can just plug that into there. Oh, it does loop down and come through. There's a little catch in there. You can loop your wire down around and then plug it onto there, and then this earth goes underneath that screw, so it fits in there like that. Okay, once that screw's in there. Too easy? Too easy. So, carrying on from that, pull this wire down a bit more. Run the black one down the back. Pinch it into that little loop at there, top that I showed you before, and then push it onto that connection. Long nose pliers, fingers are too fat. Cool. Just trying to make sure that is actually on there. There we go. That's all clipped in now. So that is good to go. There's our other screw gone there. Right. The earth down in there now. Magneto's fairly, the ignition module's fairly on there now, so with the magnet and the fact that I pushed it hard on and then tightened that screw down. So as long as you have that earth in there now, and that's important because that stops your saw, grounds that whole circuit. That's what they call it, the earth, I guess. Right, so that's all that bit. You can now remove the business card. Gone, bye, see ya. And from there, you flip the saw up and have a look at what's going on here. So this wire will, as I said, go from the fuel tank. This is waiting there to be gone into the spark plug. But we really want to put the impulse line on now, and then the intake boot. So the impulse line goes up this way, it slides into here, into that impulse nodule. So right in here, see that? That's what drives your carb, it's your impulse line. Bang, on there. And that goes up into your fuel tank. Okay, that's why we're doing this now. We're prepping up to put a fuel tank on, basically. I like doing the flywheel first. That's this is what I normally do. Like you see, all of my videos, I usually go flywheel, here, fuel tank, carb, and then muffler and clutch side. That's usually how I do things. You don't have to do them in that order. You have to put this stuff on before you put the fuel tank on, of course, but you don't have to do them in that order. You can do it whatever way you like, really. So this here is your intake boot, all right, and that goes on to there. Now it's important to have this screw facing up this way, so from the clutch side of the saw, because if you want to get this off later on without taking off the fuel tank and stuff like that, and maybe put a new intake boot on, then you can actually do this all from there. But it's very difficult with this wall here on the flywheel side to do that once you've got the fuel tank on. It's also while I'm doing it before I put the fuel tank on. So that just now pushes onto there. All that way. it's sitting correctly now. There's actually a tab on the bottom. You can't really see it, but there's a tab on the bottom, a little tab that sticks out. That shows you basically where the centre is. And you get a small flathead. I'll actually get a bigger flathead because this one will do. Because it can slip off there with a small flathead. And then you tighten that screw up. Oh no, is that going to fit in there? No, it's not. Okay. This one probably won't fit, and I'll have to end up doing it with a small one. Alright, it's fitting. So basically what I'm meaning by a bigger flathead is this is a 5x75mm flathead as opposed to a tuning flathead. Okay, this is quite a bit bigger. I'm just positioning that up so where I'm basically, oops, sorry, I got my hand across, where I'm basically tightening it up in there is where you can reach in from that clutch side to tighten or untighten this boot. If you've got a boot issue, if you find you've got a boot leak or you're not sure and you want to take the boot off but you don't want to remove the whole fuel tank. Now if you own a Husky on the other hand, like a 562 XP, you have to do this, you have to take your entire saw apart, except for the crankcases. This is the beauty of Stihl engineering, alright? You don't have to do stupid crap like that. In my opinion, in my humble, very limited opinion, that's the case. So I'm just going up firm with that. It's nice and firm now, it's not going to go anywhere. Impulse line, all these things that feed through into impulse line, intake boot, and your neutral and earth wires there. So the next thing to do for your for getting these all in is that you have AV mounts. Alright, and I'm going to put the one in that I always forget to put in and I end up having to take the fuel tank off again. And it's this one right here. So it's this funny sort of squarey type AV mount in there. There's another one here. You can see on the corner, a rubber one. I usually just leave that in while I'm cleaning. It's so hard to get in and out, that one. And it takes a lot of fiddling, so I just leave it in when I'm cleaning it. But this one can come out. So anyway, that one can all just slides in there like that. So you have the opening facing back to the rear of the handle. I'll just flip that up to make sure that's in there. Get a screwdriver, tuning screwdriver, and just make sure that's coming right through in there, which it is. So now that AV mounts in, we can got the other AV mount on the side of the saw here is a small one, alright, and this is right up the front by the oil tank, and that just presses in there, and these have to go in now because that is your mounting for your handle. So that's all sitting in there now. Alright, and that's all the AV mounts on that side, and you've got two big ones, as you can see, on this side of the saw. These two big ones. So you just smash them in. These are a bit older. If they're newer, like on some of the, especially if you're building a Hutzel saw, They're so stiff. I recommend if you're building a Hutzel saw, chuck the AV mounts and get some Stihl ones to put in there, because they are so stiff and just, they're not cool basically. I'm just gonna use this to push this in here a bit further. There we go. I'm just using the extension end off my little driver there, pushing the AV mount there. They're a bit easier to get in because they're a bit loosey-goosey, given that they're older. They're not terrible though, they're still good, otherwise I wouldn't use them. And then this one as well needs to go in further, I think. There we go, that's all in there now. Can I get that out? No, should use something smaller. It's just doing that, pushing that one in. Oh, come on. Come on, baby. Got that stuck in there now. Never used this tool for that before. I probably shouldn't have. It's always some dumb thing that I'm doing, usually on camera in front of you guys. Quite humbling. Don't know if you heard that, but we've got a new puppy. New puppy, and it's a German Shepherd. Alsatian. It is 9 weeks old. And it's doing pretty good so far. Pretty happy with it. Little girl, 9-week-old German Shepherd girl, and her name is Echo. Right. Oh, sorry, I forgot the other AV mount, which goes on top here. It's got 2 screws, 2 really small Stihl screws to go in, and that connects up to the top of the fuel tank. Make sure, the other thing that I do, you probably don't see me doing it, is off camera, I will check all of these screws and stuff like that as after it was like a first service on the saw, you know, after I've run it, I'll clean it all, check all the screws, make sure they're tight. Make sure things are like this, tight, AV mounts, working well, all that sort of thing. So it pays to check and clean your saws all the time, see what's going on with them. Don't get complacent like that. We'll chuck the spark plug in now. Don't just have a dirty saw that you don't know what's going on with all the time. It's not a good thing. Screech. Right, that's on. That can sit in there for now. That'll need to come off as we put some pieces on, but it's just annoying me flapping around, so stuck it on. Right, fuel tank now. So the fuel tank goes in mostly with the small plastic screws. You see they're quite different thread from, say, the machine screws. Okay, so that's machine screw thread that goes into all your magnesium casings. This is a plastic screw that goes into fuel tanks and connects up to the handle, used for the handle as well. So that's what we use. Those are the main screws, except for this one, which is longer, same size thread, still plastic, goes into the fuel tank, and it has a cup like this goes in. Okay, so you put that in the cup, and then that goes through this one, the top here, for the fuel tank, okay? Right, fuel tank. So this is your fuel tank. You can sort of see where the AV mounts go in. So these ones screw in from this side. Okay, once it's in there, you've got the little one at the front, and then that's the one at the top there where this one goes in. And this has two little AV mounts that, or bushes or O-rings or whatever you want to call them, that go on to the fuel tank. Right, so you want them on there like that. And this is where I like this vice, because you can flip this upside down and do these sort of things. But first, where do I have some? In my old toolbox. That's a little tool that I forgot. Sorry for disappearing, forgot about this. So this is a bit of string line, like builder's string line, and get this, and I wrap it around the intake boot. Alright, so that's like that. Just hang those down like that. You'll pull these through the fuel tank hole, which is there for the intake boot, okay? And that's going to help you pull your intake boot through. Alright, so did you get that? Just wrap it around once so that you can get some leverage on this boot. Alright, move it up to the top of the boot if you can. You don't want it sitting too far down, otherwise it's not going to do what you want it to do. It's going to sit a little funny, so that's really good. It's good technique. I forget where I learned that from. I can't remember where I learned that from. It might have been Matthew Olson, who's another chainsaw YouTuber. Go check out his channel. He does heaps of cool port work and building and all sorts of things. Really, really good information on there. And you can watch him doing bolt for bolts on Huskies. He loves Huskies. Huskies are a primary thing. You know, everyone's got faults. Right. So now we can turn this back upside down. I'm just going to turn it. I'll turn it right up. This way. Okay, and we'll slide this fuel tank in. I'm pretty sure. Oh, that not lock off. I'm pretty sure that is everything. Right, so that's sort of sitting in there now. That's about all I want to do there. Come back around to the top. Let's sort of do reach in here with the long noses. Those new ones are not long nosed enough. With the long noses. tangled up after flipping it upside down. Alright. So I'm just reaching through the back of here and I'm pulling through those strings into here. Okay. And then this, with this grommet, these have to go down into there. Awkwardness. I should have probably threaded these through before I fitted up the fuel tank like I did. Alright, that's got that now. And then those two wires get pulled through and feed down into there. Pulling them through, they'll come right through. All that length. And then, so basically, you're looking down into here like this. You can see those wires, you can see the grommet just down in there, and that needs to be pushed in. You can see the string around the intake boot there. You can see the impulse line, which also needs to be pushed into position and fitted up. Okay, so that's what I'm doing next. So that's what I'm fiddling around with down there. If you're wondering. So now I'm just going to push that intake boot down. I'm doing this before I tighten everything up, so I've got plenty of space to move, get my fingers in there and maneuver around. Basically, the bigger the saw is, the easier it is to do this sort of thing. Alright, so now everything's in play. I'm just going to push that grommet in. As well. Try and maneuver that into position. As I said, I probably should have done this part as I was, before I was putting, like, let them hang and put the fuel tank in. It's making my life hard for myself here, but that's what I usually do. Basically all these grommets and stuff like that end up meaning you're getting less sawdust and stuff into your carb area than you would. It's not working. That's just about it. Yeah, man, it's driving me crazy. The grommet that made me quit saw building. Oops. I've pulled it off anyway. That's alright. Get it in there now. So this is what I should have done, and what I should have done beforehand. I'm just pushing it in there now. Sorry I'm not showing you. I'm having a hell of a time with this because I've made life very awkward for myself. So this, you want to, before you set the fuel tank up to where I hit it, you want to push this grommet in first, okay? Very important. Learn from my mistakes. Okay, just make sure those don't slip out. I'm going to rotate this back up to the top here. Feel my way around the bottom. Make sure that intake boot's lining up. Pull those through. Basically I could pull that intake boot through now with these wires, and that'll help hold the whole thing together. Nah, it didn't work. Stuff this right up, guys. You can see videos where I've actually done that. I've just pushed it through now. See it popped out. Just got to check the bottom now. Intake boot's holding everything on really. Bummer, I made that so awkward. Right, that's in the bottom. I'm just going to chuck a screw in to hold that there. Through the AV mount. Okay, but it wouldn't be me without doing something awkward on the video, eh? Like, got to be done. Alright, back up that way. Now, I'm just going to push that impulse line into position. You just grab your long noses, and basically that'll pull through because it's kind of tapered anyway. You can just feel it pop in. So that's done now. These will go under. There's a little right in here. There is a little tab that these wires come out and go under. They hook under so that they're sitting out of the way of the actions of the carburetor. Okay, but I'll show you how to fit them in another day. I'm just going to do this fuel tank. So that's all done. Wires are in, ready. Okay, so now you want these little short ones going into your fuel tank. Might need to jiggle it a bit until you can see the hole in there. That's about it there. And that's your front mounts done. Plugs can go in. And they just press in there, cover up those holes. The screw in. Don't over tighten those guys, they're plastic threaded things, so they're threading into plastic and they're metal. And if you over tighten them, they'll just strip it out and then you're stuffed. You've just screwed your AV mount. And then this little one goes in the front here for that front AV mount. We've already put the screw in there. Press in there. Right. Then we've got our one sits on top here, and we get our capped, that little capped screw, and that feeds into there. That is all lined up, so that can just go in there just fine. And that means our saw is starting to look much more like a saw with its handle on, which in my books is pretty bloody cool. So yeah, flywheel, magneto, AV mounts, the boots inside here all on and done, all mounted up. Yeah, it's all looking good. It's all looking good. Everything is where it should be, in my opinion. And so now these wires will connect up to our little ignition switch over here, choke switch, choke lever, and yeah. So next time we might we'll go into this carb. We'll also detail putting the spring system inside the handle. A lot of people don't like doing these. They can be fiddly. I like, when I'm doing a fresh build, I like to take this out and clean it all out, make sure it's working properly, nothing's broken. So that's got the dead man switch on it as well, or the safety switch, so you can't just pull on your lever. It all fits together in there like that. And we'll go over that and how to hold that all together and put the trigger in with its pin and everything like that. This whole part is not something that often gets covered. Most people don't like to touch these. But I'm a sucker for punishment, so I go. And yeah, we'll look at this whole area of the saw, carb, everything that's involved in that, and connecting up all the carb, the throttle levers and everything like that. Throttle, choke levers. So cool. So thanks for watching another part of the series for building Frank here, and hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got some good value off it. Feel free, you don't have to watch my whole videos. Get to the parts you want to watch that are relevant to you. Don't listen to me rabbit on, but at least the whole build's on there for you to watch. And you can do so at your leisure. Great thing about YouTube. Cool. Oh well, you guys have a good one. I'll say Stihl for life, and we'll catch you on the next one. See you.